The ocean remembers everything. It remembers storms, quiet warnings, and the footsteps of men who shouldn't be here. The morning they came for my cabin, the gulls didn't scream, the wind didn't move, and the tide stood still like it was waiting to see what I'd do. 3 men stepped out of a black SUV with Harbor Crest Community Enforcement stenciled on the door. Clipboards, cheap tactical belts, mirrored sunglasses. They looked like they practiced intimidation in the mirror. I set my coffee on the railing and stared at the one who seemed to be in charge. Calm as a low tide, I asked, "Tell me, how many body bags did your HOA order today?" You should have seen their faces. But before you understand why I said that, and meant it, you need to know what this place is. This cabin isn't a vacation home or a rental. My grandfather, William Hale, built it in 1959 with lumber he hauled and cut himself. Storm-felled cedar, hand-driven nails, every board placed with care. He raised the foundation high on pilings, not because a code inspector told him to, but because he respected hurricanes. My father grew up here, and so did I. Now it's mine. When I sit on the porch, I can still feel the grooves where my grandfather's arms rested. The wood is smooth there, memory polished into grain. Across the dunes sits Harbor Crest, a neighborhood of oversized houses painted in shades approved by a committee that believes taste can be legislated. Every mailbox is identical, every lawn trimmed to regulation perfection. They have newsletters about togetherness and meetings about visual harmony. But all that really means is control. People who crave control always come for what they think is unclaimed. But my grandfather's land was claimed long before they were born. The deed is ink, not toner. The title rights are sealed, notarized, witnessed, and older than their entire subdivision. For years, they left me alone. Maybe they thought I'd sell, or die, or forget. They were wrong. So when their board decided they wanted a private beach club, and my cabin was in the way, they didn't ask, they announced. The first time I saw Marianne Cole, she was standing on my porch like she already owned it. She wore a cream blazer and heels, the kind of outfit that doesn't belong anywhere near sand. "Mr. Hale?" she asked, though she already knew. "I'm Marianne Cole, president of the Harbor Crest Homeowners Association," she said, extending a manicured hand I didn't take. She smiled like a realtor about to make a sale. "Lovely property you have here." Her tone already had a but behind it. She told me about a community coastal access project and how my cabin sat in the natural corridor of their development plan. Then she opened a glossy folder. "We'd like to offer you $75,000, she said, like it was a miracle. I laughed, quiet, not cruel. For land my grandfather built with his own hands. Her smile faltered for half a breath. "You'll change your mind," she said, voice soft but hollow. "Things are already in motion." I shook my head. "I'm not part of your everyone." Her eyes hardened. She placed her business card on my porch railing like a gravestone and walked away. I watched her go, heels clicking against the wood, and knew she wasn't done. 2 days later, I found a cream envelope taped to my gate. Notice of required voluntary departure. Voluntary departure, what a phrase. It claimed my cabin now sat within a shoreline stewardship corridor, approved by community consensus. No map, no law, just arrogance. It said I had 24 hours to vacate or face enforcement actions. I folded the letter neatly and placed it in my fireproof box beside the deed and my Winchester 12 gauge. Evidence, not emotion. The next morning, they came back. A black SUV rolled up, same stenciled lettering. 3 men climbed out, clipboard, camera, and the wannabe tough guy. "Sir," clipboard started, sticking a sign in the sand that read, "Community Enforcement Zone." "You're trespassing," I said. He ignored me. "You failed to comply. Harbor Crest has authorized corrective action." I pulled the sign from the ground and leaned it against the porch. Trash. Calm terrifies cowards more than rage ever could. "Call the sheriff," I told him. "Tell him you trespassed under false authority." They left without another word. But I knew they'd be back. The following morning, they arrived again. Same SUV, new leader. Broad shoulders, buzz cut, trying to look military. "Mr. Hale," he said, "we're giving you one final opportunity to cooperate." I rose slowly. "You brought more men this time." "As many as necessary," he replied. I looked him in the eye. "Then tell me, how many body bags did your HOA order today?" He froze. The others shifted uneasily. I didn't touch the shotgun. I didn't raise my voice. I just stood, He turned and left without a word. That night, I installed steel posts along the access road, hung heavy chains, and posted new signs. Private coastal property. No trespassing. Access by deed authority only. I mounted cameras under the eaves and checked every angle. Not fear, preparation. The next day, they returned again. This time, they brought a work truck with a hydraulic spreader, the kind used to force doors open. Marianne was back, wearing boots now, flanked by 2 men in windbreakers. 3 workers trailed behind. One with a crowbar, one with the hydraulic kit, and one who just watched. The quiet one was Tony Vega, young, scarred down his arm, eyes uncertain. "Mr. Hale," Marianne said, "this property now falls within our stewardship project. We're here to begin structural reclamation." When the worker lifted the crowbar toward my window, I stepped inside and came back out with the Winchester slung across my chest. I didn't raise it. I didn't point it. I just stood there. "You're threatening us," she said, voice high. "No," I answered. "I'm standing on my property with a legally owned firearm. The only people threatening anyone are the ones prying at my windows." Tony exhaled sharply. The worker dropped his crowbar. Marianne ordered her men to call the police. But I'd already done it. "This is Daniel Hale," I told dispatch, "reporting an attempted unlawful entry by non-government personnel. I have video and documentation. No threats made, no weapon raised." By the time the deputies arrived, the scene spoke for itself. Tools abandoned, signposts leaning, trespassers caught red-handed. The older deputy listened, looked at the evidence, and finally turned to Marianne. "Do you have a warrant?" he asked. She started to speak, but he cut her off. "Then you're trespassing. Leave the property immediately." And for once, she did. After they left, I sat on the porch, shotgun at my side, coffee cold, gulls screaming overhead. The tide rolled in, patient as ever. But I knew it wasn't over. 3 days later, a courier delivered 2 envelopes, one from Harbor Crest, one from a law office I'd never heard of. The legal letter claimed I'd agreed to sell the property to Douglas Reed for $45,000. My name was signed at the bottom, but it wasn't my handwriting. Worse, the notary's name, James Finley, belonged to a man who'd been dead 2 years. The HOA letter accused me of brandishing a firearm, interfering with restoration personnel, and warned of legal forfeiture. They were trying to steal my land on paper. I called Sandra Blake, my attorney. When I told her what they'd done, her voice turned cold. "That's fraud, Daniel. Forgery, conspiracy, criminal. Keep everything. We're not just defending your cabin anymore. We're building a case." The next morning, rain came soft and steady. That's when Tony returned, alone. He looked different, tired, but resolved. "You remember me?" he asked. I nodded. "My uncle had a shack like this once," he said quietly. "They took it from him. Forged his signature too." He reached into his jacket and handed me his cracked phone. Photos of internal memos, meeting minutes, even recordings. In one, Marianne's voice said, "Once Hale's gone, the expansion's locked." I called Sandra again, put her on speaker. Tony didn't speak. He didn't have to. When she finished listening, she said only 3 words. "We have them." By nightfall, my table was covered in documents, deeds, forged papers, audio transcripts, affidavits. Sandra came herself, trench coat still wet from the rain. She sat beside Tony, nodding once. "You told the truth before they could bury it," she said. "We worked through the night, filing injunctions, notarizing statements, freezing transactions. Quiet work, steady work, the kind that ends lies." The next morning, we met at the county courthouse with Prosecutor Claire Rhodes. She didn't waste time. She drafted arrest warrants for Marianne, 2 board members, the HOA treasurer, and Douglas Reed. By afternoon, they were all in custody. No drama, no shouting, just handcuffs and silence. Marianne didn't look angry. She looked betrayed, like the world had finally told her no. The HOA was dissolved. Every false fine refunded. Every record corrected. The jury took less than 2 hours to convict them of fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. Marianne got 8 years. The rest lost their rights to ever serve on a board again. Sandra won civil damages too, $60,000 for emotional distress and property endangerment. Weeks later, I built a small pier stretching into the sea, cedar planks, weathered nails, the way my grandfather taught me. At the end, I carved a plaque, "Private, and always will be." Now I sit there most mornings, coffee in hand, gulls screaming, tide rolling like it always has. The ocean remembers everything: storms, lies, and those who tried to rewrite what was never theirs. And as long as it remembers, so will I.